We're still in the Lunar New Year time, although the 5th day of the New Year has passed. I'd like to wish you a very happy New Year, a prosperous and healthy New Year all the same. Every success for the New Year. We'd like to report to you report number 67 of the Public Accounts Committee. There are 10 chapters in report number 67. Among the 10, we have chosen 2 chapters for open hearings. I'm sure you have followed our public hearings for the past few months. For the remaining chapters, we have questioned different government departments through correspondences, and they have given us detailed responses. This morning, I presented the PAC report number 67 on chapters 2 to the Council on funding of universities by University Grants Committee and Research Grants Committee. So the report is on UGC and RGC prepared by the Audit Commission. We held 2 open hearings and in compiling this report. The other report on maintenance and safety-related improvements of public rental housing flats. It's not included in our report to the Council this morning. We have held 3 public hearings already, asking for documents to explain on matters related to maintenance and rectification of the contaminated water and rectification of asbestos works. We gave them a lot of we asked for a number of documents on how come there were no minutes and proper records of the 7 related meetings of contaminated water of PRH. We hope that we'll be able to complete the report in the coming few months for submission to the Council. So this PC will be on the chapter on UGC, NAG, and RAC. We've also gotten a report on report 67 on aviation control, air traffic control. We've been following the issue since 2015. They have set up an expert panel, which has met once, to consider the matter. We're waiting for documents to be submitted. And what was the air traffic management situation like during the peak seasons at Christmas and Chinese New Year. So on the 12th of March, we're going to meet CAD, or we're going to visit CAD to deal with those matters. Perhaps the Deputy Chairman of the committee is responsible for that chapter. Perhaps he will briefly tell you what we are going to do on the 15th of March. Friends from the media, good afternoon. In the morning of the 15th of March, we're going to visit CAD to observe the operation of the new air traffic management system. The morning of the 15th of March. As can be seen in various media reports, a number of issues have arisen from the new system. We're told that some of the issues have been overcome. So the purpose of the visit is to see technically what they have done to address issues of concern and outstanding issues as well, and how they are going to proceed with those outstanding issues. Because safety of aviation safety is not just about the life and property of visitors and local people. Hong Kong being an aviation hub is very important. So we must not take the matter lightly. We have arranged with CAD and Secretariat to see whether we can have an interview with the press at the terminal of airport, and we will inform you in due course at the lobby of the terminal. All right, we are here to discuss our report on Chapter 2. The Deputy Chairman is again responsible for this chapter in particular. We are of the view that many of the matters are unacceptable, and we're very dissatisfied with a number of things in the report. First, on the declaration of interest. 26, in the past few years, 26 register of interest forms could not be located, and this is unacceptable. And secondly, in procurement of business class air tickets, they have not complied with the usual government procedures. And in the booking of hotels, that's the same. And they have also not properly monitored the enrollment of students. Some universities have over-enrolled and some under-enrolled, and with no justifications to the Education Bureau. And in other procurement matters, they have not followed government procedures and rules. I hope you have already read the report. I don't want to take up your time. I now give the floor to you for questions in relation to the report. Please identify yourselves and also the organizations you represent before you speak. I'm from Standard. To explore measures to attract more non-local students other than those from the mainland. For mainland students, they account for a large proportion of the non-local students in Hong Kong. You're saying that our universities are admitting too many mainland students, affecting our internationalization. Well, these 8 UGC-funded universities have this restriction from the government. They cannot admit more than 15,000 local students in every cohort. So we'll talk about undergraduate students. They can admit no more than 20% of non-local students in order to achieve internationalization of our universities. However, in the past 3 years, they have admitted 16% are non-local students, and among them, 70% of them came from the mainland. Not that they are inferior, but can we achieve the objective of internationalization in this way? We hope to see diversity of nationalities of students being admitted so that we can achieve internationalization. Some universities may find it easier to admit mainland students, or maybe there are more applications from the mainland. We just like to bring out this issue for the EDB to address. Kenneth, have you got anything to add? As we all know, UGC is publicly funded. Even for overseas students, we do not have any statistics, whether they be from the mainland or otherwise. How many of them continue their studies or take up employment in Hong Kong after completing their undergraduate or graduate programs? We need such statistics. so that we know how much resources should be spent on non-local students. I'm afraid currently such statistics are missing. Another issue is about the supply of hostel places from universities. To achieve internationalization, we must have enough student hostels, because non-local students must live in hostels. Land resources for building student hostels is insufficient, and we hope the administration can reserve more resources as far as possible. But of course, this is the recommendation of the PAC, and we hope government departments can actively consider our proposals.
We still have a shortfall of 8,600 hostel places, and we're not just talking about hostel places for overseas students. For local students, there is a commitment that they should be able to stay in a student hostel for 1 year, during their 4-year, studies. Very often, the universities have not made full use of the site when they build hostels. So if a site could be used to build 100 places, they have only built 60, and we believe that would be a waste of resources. We hope that there could be some improvements. Mr. Lam, I'd like to add that during the public hearing of the PAC, I've also criticized the government department for the so-called internationalization, which is actually mainlandization. 70% of the non-local students are from the mainland. We think that that is too lopsided. On the one hand, we note that in recent years, the number of students who can satisfy the enrollment requirements, it's about 22,000, but there are only 15,000 places for locals, eligible local students, and there are 7,000 local students who are eligible but not admitted. On the other hand, we have many non-local students, mainly those from the mainland, are taking up the places. The government is saying that we're talking about two separate, figures, and they have additional resources for the non-local students. But still, we're talking about, public funds and government resources. Mr. Lam is correct. Since 1997, the quota of 15,000 university places has remained unchanged. Many of our students are now forced to enroll for private universities or associate degree programs, and as a result, their career prospects are affected. We have many motion debates in LegCo which also touch on this subject. So with 22,000 eligible students, and we only have quotas for 1,700. So I think we need to really, nurture more local talents. Yeah. On the air traffic control system, under what circumstances will the PAC conduct another hearing to discuss the new ATC system? And the problem has remained unresolved since the last term. Is it because the CAT has not done a good job? The CAT has already done its level best to answer our questions. Especially the ATC system is a safety system. The PAC has asked many questions, and they've also answered many of our questions. But subsequently, many things have happened, and we have followed up on those matters. The government has spent $1.5 billion to procure the system. When they bought the system, there were only 3 jurisdictions which have used that system. In one of such airports, they've used it for only a few months and stopped using it, because problems have, emerged. We want to ensure safety in our air traffic control system, and that's why we spend a lot of time, especially Mr. Leung has spent a lot of time to follow up on this issue. The government has also cooperated with the committee. Since they've identified the problem, they have delayed the commissioning of the system. It should have been commissioned in early 2016, and it was only commissioned in October, November 2016, and they did not, commission the whole system at once. So we had to follow up as to whether or not the new system was like what they claim. That is, that they would be able to achieve what they wanted to achieve when they bought the system. They went through a whole tendering process, and many problems arose during the tendering process. In the past, they would need to have, 1 year of, track record. But in the tender document, they reduced it to 6 months, and we wanted to find out why. Especially, we learned that the AT system had been used in New Delhi, and before the procurement, the Prime Minister of the UK, David Cameron, went to New Delhi, and there were a few black spots identified on the radar screen when his plane approached New Delhi. We also asked about this incident. We hope that no such incident would happen in Hong Kong. We want to ensure that planes, coming into and going out of Hong Kong would be safe, and that's why we've been following up on this since 2015, and we will not stop. If there's a need for further inquiries, we would do that. But during the earlier inquiries, we've asked many questions. They've also answered many of our questions, and then new issues were identified, and we will follow up on them accordingly. Commercial radio. A question about the UGC. I have 2 questions. First of all, you told us that you have 22,000 eligible students and only 15,000 places. In your report, you recommend that more resources which could have been used to recruit more local students are now used to recruit non-local students. Based on your recommendation, are you saying that we should, transfer the resources allocated for non-local students to recruit local students? Well, my personal opinion is that the quota of 15,000 could be increased. Internationalization is one issue, but if there is a lump sum, if you cannot recruit students from other jurisdictions, then we should, allocate more resources on the local students. We don't want to interfere with how they do this, but we would look at the policy and ask whether or not we're getting money for value, and we want to know why they are being so inflexible. I don't really have very much to add. We're only, making our proposal based on the value for money proposal. From the policy perspective, the UGC or our Secretary for Education may have other views. But from the value for money angle, why is it that we must stick with the quota of 15,000? Is it that we don't have, resources or the places to accommodate more local students? That's the question I want to ask. Other than resources and number, we don't have a clear benchmark to measure whether or not we have successfully achieved internationalization. So that is a major consideration. Another point I'd like to talk about would be hostel places. Even if we have the money and the resources and the places, if we don't have enough hostel places, then internationalization would be adversely affected. Mr. Lam? Many young people nowadays, given that we don't have enough university places, are forced to enroll for sub-degree programs or other courses, and they have to shoulder a very heavy financial burden. And after they graduate, they will be owing $200,000 to $300,000. This is most unfair. The government has the resources, but it is allocating them to benefit the non-local students. Most of most of whom come from mainland. I think one of the reasons for the conflict between the people of Hong Kong and the mainland is that we have very uneven allocation of resources. At the time of the PAC inquiry, the government was still not able to tell us whether or not these mainland students have stayed after they graduate to take for employment for the benefit of Hong Kong, and how many of the master degree graduates have made any contributions to Hong Kong. The government claims that its policy is very successful, but there is no basis to substantiate that.
Hong Kong is an international city. Whether it be primary, secondary, or tertiary institutions, it is good that we can have internationalization. It's not that we don't welcome mainland students. And I've met many mainland students in universities. Many of them are really outstanding, brilliant. They can be enrolled in top-notch universities all over the world. What we say here is that we want more resources to be deployed so that both local and non-local students can have a chance to study in universities. You may think that we're saying that international students have taken places away from local students. No, that's not the case. We're saying that there has been no increase in local places. First, we are questioning whether they can fully achieve their target of internationalization. We have only got 70%. We've got 70% from the mainland. Yes, it is something good. Under one country, two system. It is good that they can be more understanding and interaction between local and mainland students. We're just saying that how come we cannot have more places over that 15,000 for local students? Do not spend money on TSA or other things. Hong Kong has no other resources apart from human resources, which require nurturing. We have to make a distinction here. Mr. Stephen Ho said, do we have international students? Is there any competition for resources between mainland and local students? Our greatest concern is this 15,000 first degree places has not been adjusted for a long time. And even though the international places are not fully taken up, the places cannot be deployed to enroll local students. And from the perspective of use of resources, this is undesirable. And because of our geographical location, it's natural that we have more mainland students in the non-local category, but we don't have any statistics from the administration. When we go overseas for exchange, we can have an exchange of culture with the local people. So I'd like to know whether this exchange between local and non-local students are really benefiting our students, whether there's been a broadening of horizon. Please do not think that the issue is about competition of resources between local and non-local students. And the view of the PAC is unanimous on that. We criticize the Education Bureau on the following matter. In RAC and UGC, there is no strategic plan on development of universities. We criticize them in our report. We hope that Mr. Eddie Ng can get our meaning or intention. And all organization needs a strategic plan, and education and is an important element in Hong Kong. So it needs a strategic plan. We want UGC and RAC to be able to do that. And there is also the question of value for money. About fees, one of your matter of grave concern is in 2012-13, you're only able to cover 18% of the cost and the 15.8% in 2015-16. From the PAC's perspective, is there an urgent need to review university tuition fees in Hong Kong, and what do you think is the reasonable rate of recovery for proper use of resources? We have not set too much to pressurize the UGC to increase tuition fees. Now, my personal view is university tuition fees should be viewed as an investment, and we should not look at the recovery rate mainly from monetary terms, because society can benefit from professionals trained in our universities. They can benefit society throughout their life. So the point here is from the perspective of the PAC report. But I've told you my personal view, and all members here can tell you their personal views. We just want to point out what's in the report. And household income has not grown as much as the economy, and there is also a big wealth gap in society. So investment in hospitals, in elderly homes, and in education investments, we should not purely look at the economic gains. In many countries, university education is free. So we are spending about $1.8 billion on university education every year. Perhaps we should even enlarge this figure. We are just following up on a point made in the audit report. Perhaps other members would also like to tell us their views. Chairman, I think you are more qualified to be the Secretary for Education than Mr. Eddie Ng. Tanya, any comments on tuition fees? The most important point is our education policy. As said, the number of subsidized places has not been increased for so many years. And if our resources are used properly, there is no urgent need to change or adjust our tuition fees. Mr. Pose? Yes, we need investment in education, and young people are under unnecessary pressure because of tertiary education. I've benefited from the Australian education. I received education there free during my days. So we will be able to benefit not just Hong Kong and countries not so fortunate as we are, so that they can have the opportunity to move up the social ladder by means of education. Mr. Stephen Ho, on tuition fee. Yes, I agree with the chairman. Investing in local students means future resources for Hong Kong. And as we all know, it's not easy to raise a salary even for accountable officers. Increasing tuition fee is equally the same. And unfortunately, I was under pressure during my university days. I had to choose a university with lower tuition fee. And tuition fees are affected by a number of factors, including the socio-economic climate. And we also have to look at the affordability of students and whether we should achieve a full cost recovery rate. That need not be our objective. There is no urgent need for the fee to be reviewed. But if we do not point it out here, it will be irresponsible. We should at least let the public know that we have this issue, but currently there is no need to change the level. Mr. Kenneth Leung, PAC has to address issues raised by the Director of Audit. Anyway, as the chairman said, we have not devoted too many paragraphs to this issue. We should not see whether cost recovery is the objective. Rather, I feel that there should be more flexibility in repayment of grants and loans so that students do not owe the government hundreds of millions of dollars, thousands of dollars, so they're very eager to repay the debts. We should relieve our students of this pressure.
As you can see, we don't have any strong views while we take into consideration the views of the Director of Audit. But we hope that the education panel will also explore the policy aspect here. We're not looking at policy aspects, we're just looking at whether or not there is value for money. I'm from Ming Pao. My name is Leung. 2 questions. You also challenged the 76% non-local students, whether or not we've achieved the internationalization target. Do you have a figure in mind, say, reducing it to 60%? And secondly, you say there should be some, data to evaluate whether or not these non-local students are making a contribution to Hong Kong. Well, the objective data or figures will need to be based on an objective standard or criteria. The UGC should come up with its own criteria to define what is internationalization and how it's supposed to have been achieved. If you don't have such a set of criteria or benchmark, it's difficult for the universities to know what to do. They will only, recruit, enroll students based on a 20% quota, and they will, and on that basis, they will recruit the students. Using resources like that will not enable them to achieve the target of internationalization. I'd like to also point out that previously, the Hong Kong U also trained many students who subsequently became, leaders like, financial, ministers of Malaya and so on. So this is what we mean by internationalization. So when these non-local students go back to the home countries, or even if they stay in Hong Kong, many of them do, after they have been educated in Hong Kong. So that would be for the UGC and the Education Bureau to come up with a system and how the system can define what is internationalization. We are only noting that with the 7% figure, we're not yet achieving internationalization. We are looking at the issue from the resource allocation angle. We simply want to say that we should have more non-local students from other countries before we can have genuine internationalization. That if we also have a separate program for miniaturization, then there should be separate resources to achieve that objective. Otherwise, there should be a balanced mix of non-local students, because students from different countries will bring to Hong Kong the different cultures and so on. As you can see, I'm also a council member of the Hong Kong U. For many of the students from overseas, from the mainland and the local students, it's really very, very good that they will have the opportunity to work together, to do research and so on. I myself studied overseas. Well, I think, and I can appreciate that internationalization will actually facilitate exchanges.
universities. Are you suggesting to raise that number, and to what level? Secondly, in terms of the internationalization of the university, some suggest it's actually mainlandization. I mean, what should the government do to address this problem? Thank
Firstly, PAC do not provide any solution, only make recommendations. So you call recommendations and solution might be the same thing or might be different, but we only look from a value for money audit of how best to use the money according to the objective laid down by the respective bureau. I think that is important. We must draw a line of how we are not playing God, and we only see things as they should be and how best to achieve it. So that's why you PAC always take great care in terms of good corporate governance. Okay? So for the other questions, I leave my colleagues to answer.
I think one of the key issue here is that we do not have a benchmarking for what is internationalization. It's not up to us to tell the UGC or the university what is internationalization, but I think they have to come up with some benchmarking, in future. Because if you are saying 70%, 60% is just a figure, and we don't have a benchmarking yet, and we are urging them to do a benchmarking in order to define what is internationalization.
Thank you.
Into local ones.
What do you think?
This is a unanimous decision. Thinks.
I think we all deserve to have more students, more than 15,000 to be admitted yearly. We have, as Mr. Lam told you, the Honorable Lam told you that every year there is over 22,000, 7,000 not being admitted to university, but with university entrance examination. Their career being written down because they are not within the 15,000. And they achieved the standard. So it's fair and fair for people. That's why we have so much discontent in the society, that people strive hard. I mean, in the days when I was young, I know that if I study hard, I always get an opportunity to better myself. Like all of us sitting here, I don't presume that we come from a very rich family, but then when you know that you study hard, you can always have a place in the sun, a place where you can make good hard work and achieve what you have, like all our colleagues here. So this is what we are fighting for, that with the surpluses that we have, I've urged the candidates for the next CE election to raise the mark from 15,000 to more, so that more of us can be educated and be useful soldiers to fight for the economy and betterment of Hong Kong.
Can I just reiterate one more observation I think we made before? I think the two are not mutually exclusive. I think Hong Kong is rich enough to be able to afford to have more resources for local students, as well as developing quality education for overseas students as well.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm from Ho Daily. My name is Poon. The chairman told us that the quota of 15,000 has not been changed for a long time. So could that be increased based on the resources that we can afford? For the 7,000 who are denied a place in the university, will they be really able to be admitted? And secondly, the number said that we have 15,200 odd students are attending these 15,700 places include the places for the triennium. So that's why we have about roughly 15,000 local students every year being admitted during the triennium. So the subvention is for 3 years because they had a 3-year curriculum before. During those 3 years, 15,000 were admitted per annum. I suggested, and it is clearly spelled out in the report, that since 1997, that number has not been adjusted. And I think the direction should be that we should increase that number, especially given the development of technology. I think our students, I think if we have the resources, I mean, if they have the means, there's no problem for them to go to study overseas, but we are an affluent society. So I think we should really, allocate more resources to benefit local students.
Yes, we all agree that there should be more places, but should it be up to 7,000? Now, because the total number of students is 22,000, and currently there are only 15,000 places, but should the balance of 7,000 all study in Hong Kong? I think some of them have chosen to go overseas, and we have also private universities like Xuan, and they have incorporated some of the students. So in reality, the balance may not be as many as 7,000. We've just brought out the issue for them to consider. Mr. Ho, to supplement what Mr. Shiu said, increase in the number of places involve a number of factors. After all, this is a long-term recurrent expenditure. Can our government afford the long-term recurrent expenditure to achieve this target? We must have such an objective first, and we can do it in phases. But if we do not study the feasibility now, and if there is no sincerity on the part of the administration, that it really should reflect on itself. SCMP, I am a bit confused. You're saying that there are 7,000 students every year denied of a university place. Well, so can you guarantee a place for every student who has attained the minimum requirements under DSE? No, this is not our position. We're just saying that every year there are 15,000, there are 22,000 secondary school leavers every year. And they are all set for DSE, and we've only got 15,000 places, so there should be more places available. As for the extent, is for the administration to consider, because every year we have students pursuing their studies overseas. We also have local students who did their secondary education overseas, but they've come back through non-JUPAS into our universities. So this is not a recommendation of the PAC. We're just asking the administration to study this issue. Now, if we overstep the line, we might be doing ultra-virus, but we are not doing that. Our terms of reference is to see whether the governance is according to rules and procedures. So every year our recommendations are very cautious. We have cross-party representation at the PAC, and every time we present a report, we incorporate views from different parties so that we can have good governance in Hong Kong. I'm from Singtao Daily. All right, on the register of interest forms. According to report, 26 register of interest forms have gone missing, and they may involve things are being approved by their own people. So do you think there was a deliberate move to hide things from you? And for the booking of reports of hotels, they told you that the non-local committee members were world-renowned education experts, and they deserved privileged treatment. So what follow-up measures do you have? Well, we asked the same questions as you did. We've also considered overseas practice, and it's just the same. These international education experts, academics, have come to Hong Kong not for money, but from an education point of view. Many of them have to start work the day they arrive, and they have to take time off their busy schedule, and we find it justified to offer business class tickets for them. Still, the practice of UGC may not be very desirable. First, under the government rules, the procurement of air tickets with the amount exceeding 1.43 million should require a quotation exercise. They purchased air tickets total worth $7.1 million in total. They divided the procurement into 12 batches. As a result, they did not do any quotation exercise. They didn't. Given the amount of air tickets involved, they should have special arrangement. So they are not too careful with the money. And this is not just a problem with the UGC alone. I think this is also a problem for the Education Bureau, which should give them some directions. Procurement should be done according to government rules and procedures, and they have their own policy. And for the 5 upmarket hotels, they just see a quotation from these hotels. They could have long-term arrangements with them. However, these professors came at different times, and the room rates did fluctuate. If you look at their webs, the prices might be different from day to day. However, given the amount of procurement, they should follow government procedures and should try to get the best deal. We just want to ensure that resources are spent properly. Okay, thank you. What about that register of declaration of interest forms in the RGC? There were 6 projects. 6 out of few hundreds of projects involved their own members, RGC members. We went to check their interest forms. They have a 2-tier declaration system, like the council. First, they have to declare interest as soon as they join RGC, and then there is another declaration. For instance, every time when we have a pecuniary interest on a particular item, we have to declare again. So this is a 2-tier system. We visited RGC. We were satisfied with their arrangement. And for UGC, they have introduced reforms. They have done a reform of RGC, and they will also look at the operation of RGC. We're going to follow up on that matter. And in UGC, there are 26 register of interest forms missing, and this is unacceptable. They have promised to deal with it, and we will follow up. We don't feel that there is a deliberate move to hide things, because these people do not do things out of monetary concerns. The money is very limited. So they don't get any monetary reward. Well, even though it is not money, it is an honor. So when they exercise their privileges, they should follow the rules. Just to supplement, at our open hearing, when we asked about the 26 missing forms, we asked whether they did an internal investigation, and the answer was no. They talk about looking for it everywhere. As for why the forms were missing, they had not done any investigation. So they took the matter too lightly. They overlooked the seriousness of the matter. We criticized them. We were in quite strong words. We criticized the missing forms here because if there is no proper declaration of interest, there might be unfairness, but then we did not see any injustice here. And there are projects funded by the government for approval to universities. And for some cases, the final accounts were not have been overdue for 18 years, so their attitude is too lax. We want them to change it, and they've promised. For some issues, we do understand some of the contractors have folded up their business, but for those who are still in operation, well, this is really not right. We thank PAC members here. Mr. Leung is in charge. Now, for part one, Mr. Leung is in charge. We have members responsible for one of the chapters. Some of the chapters may not involve any open hearing, but we have spent time on each and every report. Thank you very much.
如果你再有問題啦，關於空管啊。